Welcome back to the After the License channel, the channel where we help real estate agents build their business. I'm excited to have on Skyler Irvine, author of the book Niche Please, also a local Phoenician, which is fantastic. And welcome, Skyler. Good to have you on.
Jeffrey, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So it's funny. We're going to talk about marketing and lead gen, and we're going to talk about your book here today. But it's funny. You entered my world through marketing and social media and lead gen, which I think is funny. It must have been a year and a half ago. I saw an ad of yours for, I think maybe your media company. It was the Find Your Rensler video, and saw the video. It connected with me, and all of a sudden I started following you, and I noticed your wife's in real estate and is a lender, and I was like, and before you knew it, I'm connected and I'm following along. And so it's just funny how these things all kind of work out. And that really is the power of social media, right? Is kind of, putting this stuff out there in the world and connecting with people that you didn't think were going to see it. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that. And I think we're the rare case where we've actually also met in person, where sometimes that happens and you end up never meeting the people in person. So at least we broke through that barrier.
Exactly. So let's touch on your background. And before we get into the book stuff and social media, I know reading the book and watching some of your videos, your background is kind of weaved in and out of entrepreneurship and the real estate industry. Obviously, with your wife being a lender, there's some stuff there. Do you want to just touch on, how did you land on doing what you do now with the media company and writing a book and kind of all the aspects that touch the real estate industry? I think would be fantastic for people to hear.
Sure, I'll do my best to keep it brief. But I graduated in 2007, graduated college, and got hired at a corporation doing marketing. And the first 2 weeks I was there, they sent me out to go do some training in Indianapolis. By the time I came back, the boss that had hired me had left and taken another job. And it was one of those big companies. So I kind of just inherited 3 to 4 new bosses. And kind of just worked for everyone. And it was a job I didn't love doing. My parents were proud of me because I had health benefits, and it was a big company that had a lot of offices all over the place. I thought I had done everything I was supposed to do. Went to college, got good grades, got a job. I was miserable, but thought I was just supposed to be. And then the recession hit, and the recession hit hard. And this was out in Southern California. And I survived the first couple rounds of layoffs. Since I was new and cheap compared to others, but then was laid off just like the rest of them. And this was straight up. I don't know if you've seen that movie with George Clooney and Anna Kendrick called Up in the Air, where they just went around the country firing people. That's exactly what happened to me. There was a company that came in and just did mass firings. So when I left that job, it was a relief because I hated it so much. And I moved back home. I had student debt, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do next. I just knew what I didn't want to do. It gave me the courage that I had failed kind of miserably and was super embarrassed, but I was doing something I'd never wanted to do in the first place. So it made it easier to go out and try to do something on my own, knowing that, well, if I fail, I know what rock bottom is for me. It's not that bad. It's embarrassing, but I'm always able to move back home. My parents love me. They loved having me around. I hated living at home. I liked being around them, but that was the one thing. So I took to real estate. I started reading a lot of the Robert Kiyosaki books. I was reading a lot of economic history. I was driving back and forth a lot to California at the time. So I was listening to audiobooks at the time, which, now in hindsight, with everything we have today, podcasts and everything, I don't think I could even do that again. But I learned a lot about you could buy properties and rent out space, and it all seemed good on paper. But finally, I was just like, I can't live at home anymore. I'm going to take the only savings I have left. I'm going to buy a condo and rent out 2 rooms to people I went to high school with. I can stay home. But if I rent out these 2 rooms, then I'm living for free. And I had done all this work just to do it. And it finally happened. In the first month, I got checks, and all of a sudden the mortgage was covered, and everything that I'd read on paper actually happened in reality. And it was like an aha moment where I realized I did all this just to get out of living at home. But if I move back home and rent out my room, well, now I'm making money. And it was just a light bulb went off, because there's something different about getting a paycheck and then getting money from something that you just went out and kind of made or created. And I was a kid. I was so young. I kept feeling like I was going to get in trouble, or someone was going to just say like, this money doesn't count because it didn't come from a bot. Like there was something different about it. But I caught the bug. It was contagious. I loved doing it. And this was at a time where the housing market, because of the recession, it was just chaos. No one wanted to buy anything. Everyone was selling everything, and there was more supply than anyone knew what to do with it. And I realized I was just going to say, hey, well, if it worked for me, I could just keep doing this. And next I went to buying houses and was getting them for $60,000, $70,000, 3 beds, 2 baths, fix them up. And I get them rented in a minute, because there was a lot of people that got kicked out of their homes at that time that had terrible credit, couldn't buy, needed a place to live. And I realized I could get these things rented as fast as I could get them going. I hit a point where I couldn't get any more mortgages. I think I had my first 4 properties. My dad co-signed, and the banks just froze everything. Said no more money, even though you're making money, we're not going to lend you any. So that's when I pivoted that, saying, okay, this is making cash flow. This is good. Other people are seeing what I'm doing. They think it looks cool. I knew a lot of other people who would love to have some cash flow income coming in as well. I could get hard money, which was 18% loans for 6 months. I could do the exact same thing I could do. I just couldn't carry them the same as a 30-year mortgage. So I'd buy them at auction, get them rented, turn cash flow, and then sell them as an investment property to other individuals who wanted basically like a rental property in a box, so to speak. It was passive income for them. They didn't have to do the legwork. And I ended up doing that for the next couple years. And that's kind of how I got into real estate, was a non-traditional way. And I think I was doing this for maybe 2 years before I even got licensed. Finally got licensed to kind of save some money on commissions. I was doing so much of the legwork on my own. It was kind of the next logical step. And one day Blackstone came to Phoenix and said, we've got $2 billion in cash. We're going to buy everything at auction. And things that I used to be able to get for 70, we're now going for 140. And they made sense for Blackstone, but they didn't make sense for me. But to me, that I kind of looked around and said, okay, the market's coming back. All these properties are going to get bought up. Now there's pent up demand for 7 years of people not buying real estate. There's going to be a lot of first time home buyers who are my age and don't know how to buy properties. I thought if I could find a buyer's agent and help me out, that there was a market here just to pivot my real estate business and go after first-time home buyers and stop doing the investment properties, and went kind of more the traditional route and formed a real estate team, which now seems so common. But at the time, it was really rare to have a team that wasn't a husband and wife, or the team model just wasn't that big of a deal. But it made a lot of sense on paper. Just be like, hey, if we all specialize in these roles, we can do much more faster. Instead of having to do everything, you specialize in buyers, you specialize in listings, you specialize in marketing. And it got to a point where we were building that company and doing really well. And we went from 7 million in year 1 to 20 something million in year 2, doing no marketing, just organic reach on Facebook. Facebook made a ton of sense for me because, again, most of what I did was looking for market inefficiencies. My whole life was just like, where's a market inefficiency? I didn't have a lot of money to buy a big fancy office, which a lot of big brokers had. I didn't have enough money to buy a lot of website, which at the time back then, you're still looking at 30 grand to have a really good, decent website, which now you can get probably $1,000 bucks. But Facebook, I could compete with almost anyone and probably win. And Facebook was great for me at a time when Facebook was really looked down upon, especially in the business world. But it was so much easier for me to connect with a lot of people on Facebook than it was to spend the weekend door knocking, which to me seemed very inefficient. A lot of experienced real estate agents looked at it as being lazy. I was a lazy kid, didn't want to hold open houses, didn't want to go door knocking. I looked at it as just a complete inefficient use of time, whereas I could create some content online and reach 10 people at once, 100 people in a weekend, 1,000 people in a week. And that's much better than hopefully talking to 2 or 3 people spending the weekend door knocking. And that's kind of the model we went. So to try to wrap this all up, it hit a point where I was doing a couple of years of just doing the marketing, and I wasn't seeing inside of any of these houses. and thought, you know what, I want to spin off our marketing division and do what I did for our real estate business, but do it for other businesses, create this model for small businesses to do the exact same thing. Find these market inefficiencies that work for them, allow them to compete with the big guys, allow them to own a category and really kind of make a name for themselves if they just had the guidance, because it really hit a point where just doing it on Facebook was really easy. A couple years later, there's all these platforms, and I just did it full time, and it only worked because I also had someone else doing the real estate full time. So it was now what you could do with one person now took 2, 3, 4 people. So I thought, okay, if I create that agency, that could be that partner for a lot of small businesses. That's kind of a 10 to 12 year wrap up of how Rensler Media was born and what it is today. And even now it's constantly shifting with post COVID world and where we are now and downsizing a little bit. But that's kind of my background, is always been a little bit marketing and always been a little bit real estate related.
I love that entire story, because it's you did more in real estate than I actually realized. I knew you did some marketing stuff and did some investment stuff, but you kind of full blown ran a team, which is fantastic. And you're right, back then that team model didn't exist as much. It wasn't as prevalent, and so kudos to you for kind of noticing the benefits there and taking advantage of them sooner rather than later. So you open up Rensler Media, and I know you kind of partner with businesses and kind of take on that marketing arm, right? So what do you help businesses with typically? I know there's some podcasting stuff, some video stuff. You really try and be that kind of all-in-one, marketing department almost for most small businesses, at least here in Phoenix, right?
Yeah, and this is funny because we'll eventually get to talking about my book, but I mean, I made the rookie mistake, and going from one business that was successful to starting another one, you have this urge to try to get it up to that level as quickly as possible. And you're like, okay, I'm willing to start over, but like, I want to get there faster knowing what I know now. So when I pivoted, it was, I want to be everything for these small businesses. We want to be their social media partner, essentially. And it was not a clear enough message in hindsight, I don't think, because it's one thing to know something is really valuable. It's another thing to clearly communicate it to people. And a lot of the things that we were doing didn't really have names yet. Like it took a while for like SEO to become something that people understand. Now a lot of people understand SEO. We're coming up with internal terms like SMO, social media optimized, and it's platform specific. And a lot of the stuff's so confusing that a lot of small businesses just didn't understand it. And what was funny is I launched a podcast really early on as a way to connect with one-on-one with business owners, which is still a huge business hack. I'm sure you've seen it with your podcast already. And 100%. The funny thing is just by hosting our podcast, using it as a tool to introduce myself to new businesses and new business owners and show them what we can do, podcasting became a service everyone kept asking us for. And we were the leaders in it because we'd just been doing it for a long time. So we ended up doing a lot of podcasting, doing a lot more content production, a lot less advertising than I was expecting. And coming full circle, our biggest impact is with video content that's just optimized for a digital world. And the biggest thing that stuck out to me in those early years was anytime I tried to do video, it was so expensive. And video had so much potential. And the reason it was so expensive is because the traditional way of doing video was really expensive gear, and working with people that had come out of film school or had film degrees and knew how to do film a certain way. But that certain way was too expensive for what you needed in a digital social media and iPhone world. You wanted a little bit better than iPhone quality, but it was better to have it shot in 1080 than 4K because the turnaround times were faster and you could edit quicker. And the time of recording 5 videos in an hour versus one video that takes 30 days to get back from your editors, only to upload it and it's already outdated. So the big push that I kind of did internally was like, how can we do video faster and better and quicker and more efficient? And video podcasting was a main thing for us, which now is extremely common. Like if you're doing a podcast, you're silly not to set up a video camera. At the time it was, it's a YouTube show and it's a podcast. And, at the very beginning, it was just the ultimate tool to get one-on-one time with people. Where, I mean, we're downtown Phoenix. If I called up these CEOs or these business owners across the street and said, hey, my name's Skyler, Irvine, runs a media, I'd love to talk to you about my business or show you how I can help you and all that. That's just a sales call. And they say, no, I'm too busy. If I call someone up and say, hey, I've got this podcast that reaches X amount of people in a weekend, we can introduce you to an audience. Here's examples of some content you're going to get out of it. You can share it on your social media and connect with some new people. Would you be interested? Well, everyone said yes. I mean, everyone. It was either like the only thing we got was a no, I can't right now, but how about next week or something? And now they're coming into my office and sitting down with me, seeing my team and seeing us work. It was just an ultimate business hack at the time where it was led with good intentions. We want to provide you value, but getting hung up on trying to cold call versus getting someone to get basically a test run of what it would be like to work from you or work with you. It was like an aha moment, just like Facebook was back in the day, or just like buying real estate was years before. A couple of those aha moments hit, and then you just go all in on them and see what you can get out of them.
And you're so right about podcasting. And even today, right? This podcast, I'm able to message anyone and say, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? And I don't even, maybe I should tell them stats and all that fun stuff. I don't even need to do that, right? I think podcasting is so prevalent these days. And I think for a lot of for the other side, the person who's being interviewed, the guest, it's almost like an authority hack too, right? When they can post, hey, I'm on a podcast on their social media presence, people kind of put them as a higher authority. So they love it too, even if it doesn't reach anybody, but they can kind of tell their friends, hey, I'm on a podcast. And so it is such a fantastic hack and kind of meeting people you wouldn't meet and connecting with people you wouldn't normally connect with. And all you have to do is set up something like a StreamYard and you can get it done. So it's smart that you've kind of noticed these market inefficiencies and then continue to put all your chips in the middle. So let's jump to the book. So Niche Please, I'm more than halfway through. Fantastic read. So I'll commend you on that. Like, what sparked the desire to write the book? Was it connecting with these business owners and just getting a lot of people who are confused and have questions about, hey, there's so much going on here in social media and marketing, like, where do I start? And you just kind of having the same conversations. You're like, okay, I need to put this path down on paper, or was there some other inspiration there?
Well, the ultimate inspiration for actually writing this book was I wanted to take on the challenge of writing a book about social media that wouldn't become outdated 5 minutes after it was released. And because like social media just changes so quickly, like I started writing this before TikTok and Charlie D'Amelio went viral. Halfway through, Clubhouse comes and goes. This book writing process lasted longer than Quibi existed. And that just puts things in perspective that these things come and go really fast. But the way I wanted to do that was really talk about the core principles of advertising and marketing and how they've always existed and how new technology comes and changes things, but the core still remain the same. And instead of feeling overwhelmed anytime something new happens, understanding that as a small guy or the underdog trying to compete with the top dog or the big guys, new technology creates vulnerabilities for the big guys and opportunities for the small guys. And that's really neat. And I think it's important to understand that, where this book, as we were writing this and COVID hit and people were starting to lose their jobs, I really wanted to give people the tools that I wish I had when I had gotten laid off in 2008. And you enter this world and you feel lost, you feel behind. I know there's a lot of people that have way more experience doing real estate and feel like they're left behind because young guys like me know Facebook better. I grew up with Facebook, so I've got an advantage over a person with a 30-year real estate career. The truth is, learning Facebook is so much easier than getting the experience that it takes 30 years to get in real estate. We've somehow flipped it to where we think that knowing the social media stuff is better than knowing your business stuff. But if you have business experience, that is so much more valuable that if you can sprinkle in some of the other stuff, you're in a good position. I compare it a lot to like Mario Brothers when we were kids. And if you got really far in the level and you died and you were out of lives, you had to go all the way back to the beginning and starting over. And it sucked. If you got laid off after 10 years working in a career, it sucks. It feels like you're starting over, but you're not really starting over because you know what to do this time around. So even though you're back at the beginning, you're not where you were the first time you started. You're you know what to avoid, what to do, how to get to where you were faster and better and more efficiently. I think that's the same way with a lot of people that have this type of experience. How can they use social media to take advantage of those things? Because technology has lowered the playing field. If you wanted to compete back in the day, you had to spend money. You had to advertise. It was the only way. Technology has broken those barriers, and social media has allowed it to be an essentially free way to communicate with so many potential buyers and customers that if you know how to use them to your advantage, that gives you that basically lets you live any type of life you want to live, depending on whether or not you want to push the limits and build a huge business that will eventually advertise and spend a bunch of money, or if you just want to make enough money to be able to work from home anywhere in the world, knowing that you can just log into your laptop and count your checking balance. So to me, writing this book was kind of giving people the guidebook of how to capitalize on those things today and 10 years from now when we're in virtual reality world and social media has changed again. It really just comes down to connecting your message with the people who matter and doing it in the most efficient way possible. And this book, Niche Please, allows you to know if you're someone who says, okay, I know it's important, I just don't know where to start. That's what this book was for. A lot of people understand the value of these things, but they don't know the first step to take or where to begin, or should I be doing TikTok because it's the most popular, even though I've got more friends on LinkedIn. And this really kind of breaks it down step by step. Okay, if you're in this type of business and you need to connect with these types of people, you go in this direction and you keep kind of crossing things off the list that don't make sense for you. And by the end of it, you know, okay, here's where I need to be spending my time and attention. Whether or not all the platforms change in 10 years, the guide still holds up value.
And you do a great job of that in the book, which is kind of explaining, the importance of really niching down. And I think that's a big thing in real estate is we so often want to do everything for everyone. And when it comes to social media, so many agents are trying to hit every single platform. And I struggle with that too, where I'm like, oh, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do this and this, and then we're also gonna occasionally do this. When you make a good point of, if you can niche down and you can really focus in on those and really service that smaller community better, that's where the advantage is. And these tools really allow you an ability to do that, in a really efficient and effective manner in an authentic way. And so the book does a great job of kind of explaining that. And then you take it 10 steps further. And like you said, really break down, okay, this is how you identify your business niche. This is how you identify which platform might be best for you. And you kind of really walk people through like, okay, this is what that process looks like. And now you, like you said, have something where you can really go all in on. So really well done. And I really enjoy the book. And, there's a lot of books you read and they're just, it feels like you're being dragged along, and yours is the complete opposite. And maybe it's just, I love this stuff and I love marketing and I love social media, but I think it's really well written. And then the way you kind of break it all out is fantastic. So
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think I was just gonna say, like, the biggest fear I think a lot of people have when they think of niching down is losing potential other business and losing potential opportunities. But really it's more about the focus on one thing. And when you become clear in the customer's eyes or your audience's eyes, whoever it is, that this is what you do, you actually gain the other stuff as well. But if you're trying to do everything at once, you don't do anything well and everything suffers. And this, like, what a lot of people don't understand is, like, there are moments to pivot, and there are moments to pivot for a lot of different reasons. And I've worked with real estate agents who started from zero, built a YouTube channel, and within 2 years decided to quit real estate and teach other people how to build a YouTube channel. And there's also people that are going full-time on YouTube, not teaching, not coaching, not doing anything. They're just making money on YouTube ads. And what's really fascinating about this is, even when you do own your niche and you find this category, it creates these new opportunities for you that you probably don't even think of as it is today. Where, like, your podcast right now, like, if it goes 1,000 more episodes and gets picked up by Spotify, all of a sudden you're a full-time podcaster who did it part-time to supplement a real estate business. And that's where it gets really neat, is a lot of these new opportunities create really potential huge lucrative business opportunities to allow you to do a lot more than you even have on your horizon today.
And your book does a great job of kind of explaining that too, which is a lot of the people that have really niched down and focused on that niche, then you, like you said, you end up getting to kind of expand when you become successful in that niche. So, if you're someone like me who maybe has big aspirations of, well, I want to do everything because I'm watching these other people do everything. Well, to your point, and the way you kind of explained in the book is, well, a lot of those people come from a really niche down, focus, and they've had success. And when, you get success and you get income and you can kind of repeat it, then you can start to, then, if you're doing YouTube, then you can maybe dabble into TikTok or what are these other platforms. So I thought you did a really good job kind of explaining that. So some of the things I loved about the book is the way you kind of break out the sections and you give like the baseball card stats or blurbs at the end. Where did that idea come from? And what made you want to implement that? Because I thought that was fantastic.
I wanted the book to be really easy to skip parts that you might not think matter to you at the moment, and then also come back to them quickly. I love getting a book and marking it up and highlighting it and taking notes. I beat them up and I go crazy with them. But there's some books where I'll read and I'll be like, what was that one thing I was looking for? And I can't find it. So it's really crucial to kind of cut out anything that didn't need to be in this book. And that was really hard because I wanted to put everything, you're trying to counter anyone's potential objections on any subject, but it was cut out everything that doesn't need to be in there and then make it really easy to be able to flip through, go back, find certain things. I joke about it, but like there's these movies you watch when you're a kid, like an R-rated movie, and it's one thing. And then 10 years later, you watch it a little bit older and you're like, wait, that's what that movie was about. And it's because you don't know enough to even know what they're talking about yet. And that happens a lot with me with books, where if this is introducing a lot of ideas to you for the very first time ever, if you read it again 3 years from now, it'll be almost like a different book and new things will make sense to you. So the baseball card thing is an easy way to kind of flip back and be like, okay, what's the gist of this chapter? Okay, I got it now. Or who are the people that are crushing it in these categories that I can follow and learn from? And we cite a lot of entrepreneurs that you wouldn't expect to be dominating in a certain area, where like people that are doing really well on Twitter in industries you wouldn't expect, or people that are doing really well in podcasts at a lot of different levels, that gives you someone to look forward to say, okay, if I follow this person, I can kind of understand what they're doing and what's working for them, what's not working for them. If you don't know anything about entering in a new space, sometimes it's really nice to try to emulate someone else to learn enough about it to then make it yours. It's really important not to like try to copy your competition and trying to do what's worked for other people, because it won't work the same for you because it's already happened. But it is a really good way to kind of get started making content for someone who's going kind of from zero to, okay, now I got to make content for my business. Where do I start? Well, here's a couple of people you could follow in different industries that have done it really well. And I think it's really cool sometimes to take people that you think are doing really well and go back to their very beginning and see how they started. And my first podcast was terrible. And I leave it up there because you go back and look at that and you think, okay, like he's not as bad today as he used to be. So if I'm bad today, maybe I'll also get better, because that's the thing. You do get better the more you do. And seeing how far someone's grown can give you the confidence to try these things that seem a little bit out of your comfort zone.
And to your point, if you can follow someone who's having success in the platform that you pick, you can also kind of, hopefully glean some of the lessons that they've learned over time. And again, you don't want to copy them and do exactly what they're doing word for word or whatever that looks like. But, if you can skip over some of the hard lessons, and whether it's, the type of post or the content or, the way it should be formatted, right? Then theoretically you can maybe, hurry up that kind of learning curve a little bit, and to where it's a little bit easier, faster than, having a bumpy road the entire time. So I love
and the one thing I want this book to kind of give people the confidence of is, anytime you've tried something new, if you don't love it and it doesn't work immediately, you find reasons that it won't work, and you have an excuse to give up. And if you're someone who's like, okay, I should do social media, I don't know which one, I'm going to post on all these platforms, whichever one does the best, that's the one I'm going to keep doing. And that's not what you want to do for your business. If you read this book, by the end of it, you're going to know, okay, here's where I need to be spending my time. Here's what I need to be doing. And now that I know this, I'm going to do more research. I'm going to watch YouTube videos and learn how to do it better. I'm going to get advice. Now you've got the confidence to stick with it, even if it doesn't work for you right away. Because right now, if like you can go viral on TikTok, but it's really not going to do anything for your business. I know a lot of business people that go viral. It doesn't do anything. Meanwhile, they'll post something on Instagram that gets 9 likes, but it leads to 2 sales that changes their entire year. That's what social media can do for a business that a lot of people get distracted by because they kind of want the shiny object.
Yeah. And so having that path and really focusing in on something based on what you're looking for, I think is really powerful. So that's excellent. The other thing I think you do really well in the book is you give fantastic examples. Like I'm someone who learns by thinking about another example and thinking about that. And you do a great job of kind of laying that out and walking people through like, this is similar to this. And, you know, this was important and that's why this is important. What was that process like for you from like a creative perspective? Did you have like with some of these examples, did you have like a couple examples, or when you're explaining some of this stuff, you're like, okay, I want to use the Jeff Bezos Amazon example here. And I know that's going to work 100%.
The Amazon one's a great one to use. It's almost low hanging fruit, but it's really to kind of get over the fear of, okay, if I niche down into this category, that's all I'll be able to do forever. And that's so not true. What it does is it gives you the advantage to then pivot into something bigger. And you can pivot up, you can pivot to the side, you can pivot into a new category. There's a lot of things. Using Amazon, they literally sell everything to everyone all over the place today. When they started, they sold books online. They sold actual physical copies of books online. And that's all they did. And then they went up the pipeline and started offering e-readers and Kindles and going there. And now they do AWS and they're launching rockets into space. And he bought the watch, like knowing that by niching down, you're not cutting out potential growth. You're putting yourself in the best position to actually continue to grow. And we talk about when it's time to pivot, when the market tells you it should, when your business tells you it should, when you mentally want to make that pivot. And when you do it in the right way by building out a system that works for you, and then you pivot into another category, another platform. I specifically wanted to use the imagery of pivoting because I think about basketball. When you pick up your dribble and you're pivoting, you still keep your pivot foot. So you can try something new without giving up what you've already made. And if it doesn't work for you, you can always go back to it. And that's really important to know that, okay, if you're at a position where your podcast is crushing it, now you want to say, hey, maybe we should cut up some videos and put them on Instagram. Well, you're at a way better advantage because you can say, okay, I've done 100 episodes of my podcast. I'm going to start with my 10 best, take the 10 best pieces from my 10 best and put those on Instagram. So now instead of starting at 0, you're able to test things on a new platform at a much more specified and effective manner. And then if it works for you, great, you can continue to do it without giving up your podcast because your podcast is systematized at this point. You know, I do an episode once a week or every 3 weeks, or that's built out, but now I can test things. If you're starting a podcast tomorrow and you say, okay, I'm going to record audio and video and I'm going to live stream it and I'm going to put videos on YouTube and also on LinkedIn, well, you're 10 days away from wanting to walk into traffic. And I know this as someone who's done all those things and had to do them on your own and everything. And I have empathy for that because you think, okay, well, the podcast that I listen to, they all do that. So I need to do that. You can't really do that from day one, especially if you've got no prior experience doing any of it. And maybe you find out you hate podcasting in the first place. And now you've got all these Facebook pages and Instagram accounts that you've set up for this podcast that you hate. And now you've kind of you've like painted yourself into this corner. So that's why it's kind of really important to kind of focus on that niche, really figure it out. And if it's for you, push through those barriers when it gets hard, knowing that there's so much value on the other end. And then when it's time to do the next thing, you're at such a higher advantage. Like you haven't missed out on anything. Like some people think they missed out on YouTube. I know people that are starting YouTube channels to like now in the pandemic and are making a ton of money for their businesses or just on YouTube ads. And while you're worried about Clubhouse or TikTok or whatever, Facebook is still huge, especially for realtors. Like to bring us back to kind of real estate, like Facebook is the best CRM system that has ever been invented. Every new salesperson has like downloaded a CRM software, spent money, manually uploaded their contacts. Meanwhile, Facebook is telling you all this information for free. People are updating their own stuff. You can call up your top 10 every week and look on their Facebook page and know that they went to the Suns game last night and talk to them about it. And now your cold call is a warm conversation. And these are the types of tools that these platforms give to you that become a lot less scary than just being a social media that is overwhelming or burdensome. You don't have to spend any money to use a lot of these fantastic tools that are just, it was almost like they were tailor-made for realtors.
I love it. I love it. And to your point on Facebook too, the agents I talk to, the ones that are really having a ton of success and are brand new, it's all on Facebook. Cause like you said, it's all there. It's people they're already connected
the buyers
to.
are too.
Yeah. And it's their database. It's people already know them and they start to post about their real estate career. So I know we only have a few minutes left. Like if you had 60 seconds, 90 seconds, if you were to get into real estate today, knowing everything you knew and you had to make it as a real estate agent, what would your strategy be? Do you have like 60, 90 seconds on that? Would you go all in on Facebook? Would you do something on Instagram? Would you do a podcast?
I'd be doing a podcast. I would have it be hyper focused, depending on what my actual real estate niche was. Like if I wanted to own a certain neighborhood, I just think it's such a huge advantage, especially using video, where if you do video online in a targeted area for 6 months, you'll start getting recognized on the street. And I say this and people don't believe me. And then they text me or shoot me a message and like, oh my God, I just got recognized by a stranger. You go from selling yourself to having people reach out to you to work with you because they've seen you and you're familiar to them. And that is such a huge advantage. My wife's done her YouTube channel for 2 years. She's been in mortgages for almost 20. And she has people calling her up now being like, oh my God, I can't believe you actually answered. I thought I'd get your assistant or something. I've been watching all your YouTube channels. There's this thing that happens where you just feel like there's a celebrity status that comes with seeing someone on video often and repeatedly in certain scenarios, especially of authority. If you're wanting to own a neighborhood, it was awesome. Just go to every restaurant owner and say, hey, I'd love to feature on my podcast and have these people on it. And not only will you have content to use, but you're connecting with these owners of these restaurants to where if someone's sitting at the bar talking about wanting to sell their house, that guy might just say, hey, you should use this person. I was just on their podcast. Here's the link. And you're building the sales force for you that you used to have to spend tons of money on with print mailers or with billboards or with bus benches. Meanwhile, you can just have way more fun connecting with awesome people in a neighborhood, become an authority figure where your content doesn't even have to be real estate related. You can just talk about, hey, new restaurant open up here. Eventually, people just start calling you, hey, I've got a buddy coming into town. Where's a good place to go? And if people start reaching out to you for help, it's just a matter of time until you become their go-to real estate person for literally every real estate problem they have. And if you're young, like that is such an incredible foundation to start building. And if you're old, cool, do even better. You have way more connections to start with. So to me, that's just such a huge advantage. And most people just give up too soon before it really starts to pay for itself. And real estate traditionally, I mean, it used to be people would buy and sell a house every 7 years. So you'd get licensed and you tell everyone you knew and you'd get 3, 4, 5 sales in your first year. And it's awesome, but you're not doing any marketing. And then everyone forgets about you. And then your second year, you have a huge drop off. You're not selling any houses. And it's not another 6 years until those people want to buy and sell a house again. And you're panicking. But if you're doing that podcast on a regular basis, you're putting out content on a regular basis, like, man, that compounding effect gets extremely valuable in a very short amount of time.
To your point, the technology and video allows you to really focus on your community in a new way. And the community sees benefit from it because you're interviewing them and you're getting to showcase them in their new restaurant or whatever the thing is that they have. And so you're feeding kind of both sides of it. You're feeding the consumer base and the people that you're interviewing. So I love it. Skyler, I know we're at the end of our time here. Thank you so much for jumping on. We'll put links to the book in the YouTube description. Anything else you want to promote? Also put links to your Instagram and the book's Instagram as well in the YouTube description. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up here?
No, I appreciate you having me. It's really fun to jump on here and chat with you. Please buy my book. I've got 3 kids. They're hungry. They want to eat every day. So every book sale helps. I appreciate it.
I love it. I've already bought a couple. We'll maybe give out another one on Instagram as well. So awesome. Thank you so much, Skyler. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.